Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's go around and say our names. My name is Jim.
I'm Bob.
George.
Cass.
Howard. David. Kurt.
Will. Steve.
John. Bruein. Paul.
Peter.
Steve.
Anyone here for the first time? Welcome. Tell me your name again.
John.
John, welcome. We're very fortunate to have our old friend Steve Peskind back, along a hearty soul in the Buddhist realm of social justice and meditation teaching, and all in all, very high warrior energy. So welcome back. Great to see you.
Thank you. May the Force be with us. It's nice to be here this morning. Very nice. Especially with a blanket. I'm feeling that this morning. I came this morning very open-handed and extemporaneously intended, not preparing a very formal Dharma talk. Though I did bring some ammunition, maybe that's not the word to use these days, but some resources to share. And Roger's sitting here, fortunately, and he can always correct my misrepresentations of the Buddha Dharma if I make any big boo-boos. Okay, so, last time I was here or spoke in this position, I think it was about a year ago in the summers, June maybe, and I spoke at length about a relatively new, fresh diagnosis with cancer that I'm living with, though it's 2 years old as of this month. And just some of the vicissitudes and challenges of going through that knowledge or living with that knowledge, and some of the struggles. And it can be considered a quote-unquote heavy topic, but it is in fact just real life itself. And many of us, I'm sure, have had more than enough experience already in this life with the realities of living and dying in various ways. Watching the last 2 weekends, not this one, but the last two, Angels in America on HBO was a revisiting for me of many of the lessons and some of the angst of the 1980s, when I first became really involved in a heart level with hospice work and being there for our comrades in many distressful disguises, as Mother Teresa would say, and slowly learning to be there for myself. Though I did and I do a lot of things the hard way. I still do sometimes, of course. This morning, as I was sitting and thinking, I realized one of the themes in my own practice right now has to do with aversion and attachment, which are, of course, the very heart of our living and of living and dying. And feeling that viscerally, not just as an idea, but as a true body experience that we all go through. And when you're living with the challenge of a life-threatening illness or a serious illness or an injury, sometimes those two themes of pushing away, aversion, and grasping, pulling near, are very, very strong. And I want to speak to that this morning. There's the third alternative as well, which is just letting be and not pushing and pulling, which can be either passive, neutral, or it can actually be letting go of the need to push and pull. And all of these three dance, day by day, hour by hour, moment by moment. I'm using these words now in my practice when they come up, when I'm simply watching plus, minus, neutral, or yes, no, maybe so. I'm attempting and intending to experiencing these parts of mental experience viscerally, meaning in my body, and how it really, really feels. I find in aversion, and often act out somatically, the experience of pushing away. There is an actual experience of imagining or feeling my hands pushing something I don't want to experience, whether it's pain or a cancer therapy side effect, just away. I just want it out of my space. I don't want it there. I don't want it there. The other side of it, of course, is seeing things that I'm very attached to. A significant attachment of being myself. And my lover Bob, who's sitting right here. My lover and friend of 27 years. And other loved ones whom I'm close to. I feel a very strong body sensations of wanting to pull them near. Literally pull them out of the phenomenal space towards me and close to me. Somaticizing these feelings really helps practice. I wanted to bring that to the meeting today. I recommend that you do this yourself if you can, or if it appeals to you. And if it doesn't appeal to you, feel yourself pushing it away and feel what that is like. I could ask you all, just with these comments, are there questions or comments about pushing and pulling? And I know when I sit with it and just let it, that particular way of thinking of it, and considering it come in, I feel this all day long. I can actually feel myself in this ongoing dance, not only in an awake state, but in dreaming as well. Though in dreaming I'm not usually aware enough or present enough mindfully to be able to work with it the way I can when I'm awake. But pushing, pulling, all day long. You come closer, you come nearer, you go away, you get out of my face. Driving is a wonderful place to practice this. It's amazing what comes up in driving. It's like a little private space in a box, a tin box with a motor. And I know for myself that it becomes my body. And I get very protective, and I also I can get very aggressive. More so than I would in person. So anyway, that just came up as a side effect. This dance goes on in every realm of living, I believe. Yeah,
Let me ask for a question.
I did.
Not kibitzing.
I know.
But when you say somaticize,
Yeah.
it brings back a lot of like Zen practice.
Yeah.
So if you have, when
Yes.
you say somaticize, it's like making real or being developing a sense of I'm feeling the body where it is. So when you say somaticize, literally this kind of practice, when you feel that, reach out so that it's not just in the head but in the body.
Yes.
Is that an aspect of it?
Yes, I will do it consciously. I will be sitting. At times when I'm, as you're sitting, the magic 8-ball is always working and things just come up. You can't control the flow of thoughts. One can't. And so when something comes up that I have aversion to, I will act out, I will come out of my position, I will go like this. And other times, if a very strong desire comes up or attachment for anything or anyone, I will clasp my hands together, which is also an interesting exercise, and try to pull that image and that attachment towards me. You're often in that category, as I anticipatorily agree and appreciate the wonder of our connection. I mentioned this as an experience just in itself. Make a fist, if you will, one or two, and just feel what that's like to grasp and to hold and to shrink space in your hand. And then slowly open your hand. And feel what that's like. It's so simple. This exercise is so simple. And it's right now I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the difference between the grasping and the opening. And how this is so symbolic of so much. So many Buddhist mudras in the tradition of Tibetan Buddhism, for example, are based on opening and closing the hand. If you look at the pictures of the bodhisattvas, for example, Green Tara and others, there will be an open hand, often reaching down on the right, indicating the openness and release of letting go of the Dharma. Letting go of attachment is the key teaching of all the Buddhist traditions, Theravada, Zen, Vajrayana. And a simple exercise can put you in touch with that. And this dance of grasping, this is another way of doing pulling and pushing away in a way. Grasping, letting go, grasping, letting go. One can, of course, push away with an open hand. That's it depends on the movement and the intention. And a fist is another way of doing that. But these simple exercises of pushing and pulling and grasping are ways to express the Buddha Dharma in the body, to make it very vivid. As a person with an illness, I've become more aware in many ways of my body. And I'm going to become more aware, which scares me, partly. And also, I can also see as an opportunity. With respect to the illness of itself, cancer is a lot like AIDS, but not the same. And it's different for everyone. AIDS is different for everyone. The experience of living with it. Cancer is similar in the sense of being invaded and battling inside forces that you can't see, and using very powerful medicines, which themselves are toxic often, but done with compassion. All the medicines, all the chemotherapies. Chemotherapy has a very bad reputation in our world for side effects and the chemicals that are used. But I also tried to remember and consider the compassion of all the people who helped make those chemotherapies possible. Thich Nhat Hanh once at Zen Center, I think the first time he visited in '83, he's a Zen Buddhist teacher from Vietnam. He held up a bowl of rice in his talk, and he invited all of the people in attendance to consider a bowl of rice and what was really in a bowl of rice in terms of interbeing with everything. The farmers who grew the rice and planted the rice, the rain, the sun, the air, the intentions of the harvesters, the people who delivered the rice and processed it, the people who cooked the rice. There's the whole world. And the way he speaks, I don't know how many of you have heard him in person. He's entrancing. He's so present. When he speaks of mindfulness, he's living mindfulness, I believe. And it was a powerful experience for me, needless to say. I think of that with the chemo bags. I tried, each time I get chemotherapy, I try to look at the bag that way and realize how much research, how many people experimented on themselves to produce a good chemotherapy that actually can stall the progress of cancer in the body. They can't cure it yet. I know that. And that's a hard fact, but it's true if you're attached to survival. But they can really, really give it a hard time. Some of these chemicals. For everyone, some of the chemicals work for some don't. This year until 2 weeks ago, this entire year, I had chemos that did not work. And so all year I was losing ground until about 2 weeks ago. I wouldn't be here today if it hadn't changed. I entered hospice just before Thanksgiving as a client, one who was going to get ready to go. And because I was having very bad side effects. And cancer symptoms were starting to manifest more strongly, including pain and nausea mostly. Nausea's no fun. Pain's not so much fun either. But there were some good palliative medicines available to help stabilize me at that point. And then I fortunately was able to try a drug which was just approved by the FDA this year. And it worked very quickly for me, which was very fortunate and has given me more time. Yeah?
At some point in your talk, did you address the relationship between Buddhist letting go of neutrality and kind of the more New Age idea of opening to what you want and being clear about your desires?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Creating your desires with your reality.
Thank you. Manifesting your desires?
Yes.
The law of manifestation? Okay. Well, it's pertinent to this situation, that's for sure. I have to be clear, or I should say it's an invitation for me to be clear, to know what my desires are in terms of living and dying. 2 weeks ago, part of me is very, very tired and weary of the effort to survive. I've had 6 chemotherapy protocols, 6 different drugs, 3 radiations, including 2 experimental but very effective whole brain radiations. 1 surgery, which saved my life at the beginning of the cancer. I was diagnosed at a very late stage because I didn't have lung cancer. How could I get lung cancer? I think I shared this the last time I was here. I couldn't believe it. I'm a total non-smoker and all that stuff. And of course, it's not just smokers who get cancer, lung cancer. It's about 50% are not smokers. And I remember telling my doctor when I was diagnosed, I was joking. I said, I can't get cancer. I go to Whole Foods. And it was like, this doesn't make any sense. Surprise on me. And I have to admit, it still feels a little bit like that. If I ask myself why, I don't know. I don't know how, and I don't know why. And that is the truth of of death and dying and impermanence for all of us. We don't know. None of us. 10 out of 10 of us still die, and we do not know when or how exactly it's going to happen. Don Juan's advice to Carlos Castaneda, which was a strong influence on me at a certain time when I was just going to college, to keep death as an advisor, was very good advice, and it's very hard to do it. Denial is a wonderful thing. Anyone tells you it's not, that's baloney. Denial is terror management, in a certain sense. It's a way to keep the harsh realities at bay, and we all like to live in this bubble of immortality and not really considering the reality of death. It's impossible for my favorite mantra, I. It really is the thought that really is, is so strong, to imagine that it's going to disappear. How can I, which is in a Buddhist perspective, a false construct anyway, in the sense of reality, the essence of reality, how can I imagine itself disappearing when it is so invested in perpetuating the illusion of continuity of self? I'll speak for myself. I'm very invested in this I continuing. I'm attached to my story, my biography, and just gentle, mindful looking at your biography is also a very useful exercise to do in light of dying. All of your identities, cherished identities, your name, rank, your different roles, son, lover, gay man, Buddhist, all these descriptive words are up for grabs. They're really up to be changed drastically and to be let go of. Which brings me to your question. Desire and wanting relatively good stuff. Love, food, shelter, clothing, protection, safety, a real connection with another human being, whether as a friend or as a lover. These are natural, relative desires of the human realm. And practices to manifest that more clearly and potently are good. The question, from the Buddhist perspective, is attachment. There's nothing wrong, per se, with the realm. The realm of desire, and then the negative desires. Negative desires or aversions are a form of desire, negatively expressed. The hatreds is the most extreme form. Fear, anger, aggression, those come up too. They just don't disappear unless one has cleansed one's mind enough, whether in the way of the arhat or the bodhisattva, for them to be minimized or gone altogether. But until that happens, they're part and parcel of life, grist for the mill, as one teacher calls it. And they need to be honored and gone into and investigated rather than averted and ignored and pushed away. Pushing away and not paying attention won't get you very far other than stronger aversion, usually, stronger habits of that. The law of manifestation, as far as I can reckon, is not anti-Buddhist. There's a lot of criticism about this, particularly with when it seems to interfere with Buddhist teaching. This comes up often with Soka Gakkai and some forms of practice of Nichiren Shoshu, which is a Pure Land Buddhist practice, where, at least initially, a long time ago when I was shakubuku'd, that was my introduction to Buddhism, actually, besides studying. I was getting shakubuku'd on Santa Monica Beach. Shakubuku is their proselytizing, very enthusiastic way to recruit new people. And part of the promise then was that if you could get anything you want by focusing your mind and chanting the first lines of the Lotus Sutra, I think, according to Shinran Daishonin, who's the founder of that sect. Right? Nichiren, yeah, Nichiren, right. So, again, the key word is attachment. And I brought a book today which I really, really appreciate because it responds very clearly to many of the questions we all carry around with us as Western Buddhists, sometimes getting confused by the different flavors. That's kind of a light word. The very strong traditions within the Buddhist umbrella, or under the Buddhist umbrella. This is called One Dharma by Joseph Goldstein, and it's a great book for reference and for getting grounded perspective in dealing with Buddhism as it is playing out in the West. On page 31, he quotes the Buddha with respect to attachment and what might be called false refuge. When we take refuge in these things that we're manifesting as going to make us happy, that we're going to find true happiness and freedom through having rather than through being. To the Buddha and his awakening, that seemed very foolish. The Buddha said, it was the Buddha's reflection on impermanence that inspired the Bodhisattva, what we call the Buddha before his enlightenment, in his quest for awakening, as he sought to discover that which is unborn and undying. He asked, why, being myself subject to birth, do I seek what is also subject to birth? Why, being subject to aging, sickness, death, and sorrow, do I seek what is also subject to aging, sickness, death, and sorrow? Subject to change, why do we seek what is also subject to change? Although on some level we may see and understand the futility of seeking, this is Joseph Goldstein, of seeking fulfillment in things that by their very nature don't last, we often still find ourselves living our lives waiting for the next hit of experience, whether it is the next vacation, the next relationship, the next meal, or even the next breath. And I can see getting very attached to the breath if one's breathing is in jeopardy. We lean forward and so stay forever entangled in anticipation. Reflecting on and directly observing impermanence reminds us again and again that all experience is simply part of an endlessly passing show. That is the key. to keep that in mind as we're engaging life, relatively speaking. I use the word relative because another very helpful Buddhist teaching is a distinction or understanding a difference between relative and absolute or ultimate perspective. The ultimate perspective, there is perhaps nothing to gain at all, or nothing to do. Or perhaps there is on the path of cultivating the union of awareness and emptiness, which is expressed in Zen and Mahamudra and Dzogchen teachings of Zen and Adriana. But the point here is that the Dharma is available to us to use as a tool. And one of the focuses of the Dharma is main focuses is non-grasping. Is to realize the more you let go, the freer you are. Let's see, there was Acha Cha, who was a very well-known and highly respected Thai teacher. He made a comment about this. Basically, the comment was, we let go a little, we experience a little freedom. We let go a lot, we experience more freedom. And death and dying, if anything, is a teaching about letting go. If you approach it and welcome it in your heart and life as such a teaching. I don't claim to be able to do that a lot of the time. Sometimes I can, but sometimes I get very caught up in the drama of me and what I'm going to lose, and what a pain it's going to be to go to elementary school again, if that's what I have to do. I don't know. I haven't a clue. That's the other thing. That's the other thing that's so wonderful about being in the state of not knowing, is the mystery of it all. We know so much, we think, technologically, and for God's sakes, we have broadband and DSL, and nanotechnology isn't far away, and all these things. I was looking at the newspaper last weekend, the Sunday paper, and I don't never read the ads, but I did last Sunday because I was feeling good, and I was feeling lustful for stuff. And I was looking at these plasma TV screens.
50 inches.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about size. And these flat screens and computers hooked up to plasma monitors and right to the internet, and like, oh man, these look like the funnest toys. Not to mention digital cameras and cell phones with TV monitors. So I was reading ads for an hour, and I was watching myself to some extent reading ads for an hour, and I was reminded again of what I just read from the Buddha. It's so easy to be seduced by this culture. This culture is seducing us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether it's on the internet or on TV, newspapers. I was without a computer for 2 weeks. This last 2 weeks, the computer crashed, and we rebuilt it. That was kind of nice. I was surprised that I could live without the internet for 2 weeks. And 5 years ago, I didn't even know what it was, practically. So I invite you to look at things you think and feel you can't live without. In hospice at Shanti and other places that I've worked, we did an exercise where we asked each person to take 5 cards, and on each card write down the 5 things or people they were most attached to, and to rank them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we had 5 rounds of the angel of death, sometimes we have the angel of death in wonderful death drag, whatever that is. Now I'm going to think of Emma Thompson as an angel. I know, because of Angels in America. The angel of death would go around the circle of trainees, volunteers in training, and one by one take the cards away from them. And we would ask people how they felt. And they didn't like it, most of us. And then by the time we got to cards number 2 and 1, whoo, you could feel the tension in the room. In fact, we had to scream at one point. One of the trainings, I remember that clearly. And that people were really getting upset. They were identifying with the exercise, and they were also realizing the truth of the exercise. That this wasn't just theoretical. And that's perhaps a point I can end with another couple of points. Yeah. And he's laughing because he knows how much I like to talk. It's true. I'm attached to words too. These teachings that the Buddha is offering us through all the different forms of Buddha Dharma are not theoretical. They can be taken that way intellectually, which is fine, and understanding them more deeply that way. But they need to be lived and experienced to make a difference in the quality of your life and your death. People who have had experience disappearing already before dying, through meditation or through service, or whatever the yoga is that they have practiced wholeheartedly, they will have perhaps, it is a perhaps, more freedom and less fear in approaching the final dissolution of the body. I often say when I'm talking about this stuff lately, it's not just words. Sitting is a good thing. It's not just a good idea. It really makes a difference if you sit every day and practice letting go and visiting with your mind and heart in a gentle, releasing way. 2 other lessons I would like to pass on in this point in my life. That kindness, simple kindness, sometimes called loving kindness, sometimes called compassion, they often get mixed together, or they're different in definitions in some ways. But simple kindness makes all the difference in the world. If you're coming towards an experience and yourself and other people and dogs and insects, all sentient beings, with kindness, they can tell. All living beings and sentient beings, I think, can pretty much tell the difference between kindness and harm. And I would ask you all to be mindful of that. How you treat yourself and your own challenges, as well as other people. Kindness opens people, or generally opens people up, depending on the kindness. And opening up feels more inclusive and warm and participatory in the great dance of interbeing that we're part of. Harm closes things down, contracts, closes us up to experiencing things as they are. It makes a huge difference. I can feel it with nurses in the chemo infusion center. I can feel which ones have been really frazzled all day, and they get really frazzled, some of them, and they just want to get you done. You know what I mean? They just want you done. They want to get your IV in, and they don't want any problems with the IV. They don't, and it's like poke. And that, this is an extreme example, but you can tell. Your whole body can feel that. That's harm and kindness at the same time. And that often happens. And that can be schizomaking, but it happens a lot, and we do this a lot. Where we have good intentions, but we don't do it mindfully. Or skillfully, maybe, is the word. So, kindness and harm is one thing I'm very aware of. Another thing, or another aspect of experience that I'll end with, and really end with, before questions, if there are any, is that who we are, our Buddha nature, there's so many words for it, descriptive words, raids on the unspeakable, as Thomas Merton, the Christian monk, said. Buddha nature, nature of mind, ultimate truth, primordial wisdom. These are real. These descriptive words are pointing to an aspect of our own experience, which is true in all of us, and our Tathagata Garbha, our Buddha seeds of all of our awarenesses. We're bigger than AIDS. We're greater than AIDS and cancer and any other hardship, relative hardship in our life will ever be. That aspect of us, that quality, that essence is here all the time in my experience, my take on the situation. Though there has been some argument about that. I believe that that's true. I've seen people who were not practitioners. This is another notion people have, that you have to be a very good practitioner to die well, or to go through the process well, because if you haven't practiced, how do you expect to do that on your deathbed, right? Well, that is a good point. In terms of practice really does help, if you practice well and authentically. But I've seen people open up and transform to letting go on profound levels without what you would think has been much practice at all. But for some reason, they are ripe to be there at that time in their life. And a message here is to please trust your karma. And the intention that brought you here this morning, to be in a Buddhist group with our as brothers, trust that you will get the help that is available to you, the help that you need from your own and perhaps other help in the spiritual physics that we're all living in. The spiritual physics of love, real love, wisdom, the ability to see clearly and understand what is going on more clearly, and compassion, which I am experiencing as being toward everyone all the time. The compassion of the universe is after us, is towards us moment by moment. It really feels like that to me sometimes. So those are a few thoughts for a Sunday morning before the equinox. Not the equinox, the solstice. I always get this mixed up. Tomorrow. The shortest day of the year, the longest night of the year tonight. Solstice is tomorrow morning, in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. And to me, that's an important holiday, because spring and rebirth are happening already with the first rains. And that makes me happy. I'm glad about that. I like that cycle very much, to be on that side of the cycle especially. Are there comments or questions about today?
I'd like to make a couple of comments, and I'll try to keep them short.
Okay.
In regard to what we do when we get sick and why we get sick. The sutra or the teaching of the Vimala Kirti says the Bodhisattva gets sick because beings are sick. And so when I get sick, I try to feel it as a participation in the sickness of all beings. And I remember being told that when a Tibetan physician becomes a physician, he or she takes the bodhisattva vow, which means that he or she is prepared to take on the sickness of the patient if that is necessary for a cure. And this contrasts sharply with our normal way. When we meet somebody who has the cold, we say, "Don't come near me."
Yes.
You see, it's taking it in.
Yes.
And rather bizarrely, what I proposed this morning, as you know, I practice in the Christian tradition as well as Buddhist, so I went to early Mass up in Lassiter, and the Bishop of Sacramento has issued a recommendation that because of the flu, we should not touch hands and kiss of peace, and say so. And I thought, well, we could change it and say, rather than saying, "Peace be with you," I'm with you, we say, "But the flow be with you."
That's a good idea.
The other thing was to answer quickly about
That would ruffle a few feathers.
manifesting our reality. The Buddhist teaching is very similar to the so-called New Age notion of manifesting our reality, except that the Buddhist teaching says that it takes much more effort and it takes longer. So that a number of traditions say if you perform a particular visualization or liturgy, which may take quite some time to say 100,000 times, or for a number of weeks, or a number of for 3 years, you will see the Buddhist and Bodhisattvas, or something will happen.
Yes.
But you must keep on with that for a long time.
Right.
And then some of our actions will only fruit in the next life or subsequent lives. So it's a very similar teaching, but it means it doesn't happen quickly or easily.
So is that like a physician's warning, like they have on cigarettes? Practice this, but it may not occur right now.
As you have to wait, you see. Like if you take certain medications, they don't act immediately. You have to wait a bit.
Those seeds of manifestation, of manifesting deities or transcendental archetypal aspects of the Buddha's awakened mind, which is what the deities are: compassion, wisdom, power, very much mental manifesting, concentrating and really praying and wishing for them to be, and then actually experiencing them not only outside oneself as real appearing, but at oneself as that aspect of Buddha's mind. One becomes Avalokiteshvara. One becomes Vajrapani. It's a very powerful practice.
And I was just talking to someone a couple of nights ago who's a monk from Korea, and he said he'd been taught about all these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and he believed in them in a kind of intellectual way, but then he did the practice for 3 years, and then he saw them coming down and said, "Oh, they really do exist."
Yeah, that's true for many who do it sincerely, that conscientiously. The other thing that you said that I wanted to mention is, or comment on myself, is this idea of taking pain on as not my pain, but the pain. Stephen Levine speaks to this. And he tells a remarkable story, I remember this clearly, of a woman dying in a hospital bed who did not have a good life and was not what we would call, spiritual per se, whatever that means. But she opened her heart to all other beings. She practiced opening her heart to all other women with breast cancer and receiving their pain. Truly practicing for all women with this disease. And she was transformed by this practice. She became much bigger and much more at peace as she did that and released. If you're interested in this and learning how to do this, there is a technique in Tibetan Buddhism called taking and sending, or receiving and giving. It's called in the Lojong practice. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche and Andrew Harvey and Patrick Gaffney has a very good chapter on compassion and these practices, about how to set your attitude towards going towards this pain of our lives, shared pain of interbeing, rather than contracting and pushing it away.
And Chodron's book, When Things Fall Apart.
Yes, well, that's a great book. It's a good book.
I had one more comment, which I should take over.
Howard has one.
Okay.
Can you hold it?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. I think I can.
Okay.
Well, just your experience of your practice in grief. It seems to me as though grief, in the best sense of the word, somatically, would be a natural and continual state of practice.
Mm-hmm.
Wondering if that was your experience.
Yeah, it's like Lucy saying to Charlie Brown, "Good grief, Charlie Brown," in the sense that she's exclaiming an objection, basically. But I wish everybody good grief in that sense, because you're right on. Grief every day. There's all the little losses, parking spaces. Things that just don't go right, and sometimes big losses. But if we can befriend the little griefs and the little deaths along the way, when it comes time to let go big time, it helps. Well, I know this, but I know it at a different level. Can I open up more to letting go of everything? And I'm working with this one because I get really stubborn and angry sometimes. I don't want to. When the hospice workers were in our living room talking to me about hospice and what could expect as the disease progresses, I was listening and I was going, oh. And then the thought came up, oh, that's me they're talking about. I wasn't sitting there helping somebody else, so to speak, to do this as I have in the past. This is me who's going to be on the deathbed, and me having all these possible complications, and me needing really wanting, talking about happiness through having. At that point, happiness through having would be having the right pain medication. And I'm not at that point in my practice where I can honestly say I'm not afraid of anything, that's for sure. And I've got many tumors in my brain. And I wonder about that. There's a lot to wonder about. Liver, brain, lungs. And I try to do body awareness meditations. I'm practicing trying to let go of my attachment to my own body, my own cherished organs. And that's not easy sometimes. But I know I do know that being present, awareness is such an incredible gift. Worrying about it doesn't help. When the time actually comes, one can be present, can pay attention to what's happening, and find a lot more space, perhaps, than we imagine as we are now, without thinking about it. Roger?
That method, we're out of time.
Roger, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm the facilitator. If you want to keep talking, anyone who needs to go can slip out. But this is a very rich vein, and I don't want to cut it off just because we're used to chopping off at noon. Are you open for?
Sure. Roger had something else to share.
Well, I just wanted to share one thing. A few years ago, I was in a situation where it seemed like I might be dying. And, of course, as I said, I practice in Christian Buddhist traditions, so well, you're supposed to do some Christian or something Buddhist when you die. Now, which am I to do here? This is perplexity. And then I thought, well, I don't know. So I let everything go as far as I could. And then it occurred to me that if I could let everything completely go, and that would take some practice, it would allow the consciousness at death to enter into its natural unconditioned state, which would allow it then to be able to take a new form that would be more appropriate to helping beings, rather than forcing it into the form that I thought it should be.
You're trying to force it into a form?
Yes, because otherwise we try to say, well, I want to be born as a such and such, you see. But if I could let everything go, it allows me to be more available to other beings. And that would be a bodhisattva practice, and also a Christian practice, I think.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Yes.
Oh, but this is hard for me. The one who witnesses your struggle is a practice of gratefulness. I remember a dear man who died of AIDS, who was a second father to me, Bruce Bradley. And one thing, he was a man who raised his own family and was married, and found when his oldest child was 15 that it was gay. I mean, not that he found, he just sort of admitted to it and went through the process of divorce. One of the things, even after the divorce, he was still very close as he could be with his kids. One of the things he said was, in terms of raising children, was that they're always on loan from God. To integrate that with a Buddhist symbol or approach is that gratefulness that leads from the bowl of rice that Thich Nhat Hanh holds. That everyone has brought me this bowl. As everyone has brought me you. So to remain grateful is also to remain open and to remain giving, not only receiving what has been given to me, as in you, but all the other helps, all the other people, the nurses, the family. That allows me to remain and hopefully open to my own bowl of rice, that is my own life, and all the people who've contributed to my life now. And in that knowing that this bowl of rice is also my point of view, this ability to see that with an open heart and gratefulness.
Gratefulness is such a wonderful word.
It's like
Saying yes to everything.
David Steiner-Ross.
David Steiner-Ross.
Gratefulness, the heart of prayer.
Spoken. So real. Gratefulness is grateful. It's hard to be grateful for everything. It's your house.
Well, it requires a certain amount of surrender.
Yes. Before we dedicate this morning's session, are those all the comments right now? Okay. I was asking if those were all the comments for today.
I have a...
For right now. Oh?
I was awakened yesterday morning by a phone call from a very dear friend who's been being clobbered by multiple sclerosis. And he said, I just called to, I'm going to die on Wednesday. He has been at a surging clarity that Wednesday he's going to die. And but he doesn't want to. But his stepmother and brother visited him, and Wednesday's the day. Do you believe that if you said it's time to yourself, it's time for me to move on, that would happen? I mean, did you feel that your mind and if you felt doing the geometry of your life, and this was people visiting, people do make these decisions, and conversely, that your appetite for life and more of him and more has kept you alive.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's a force of your desire for life.
A living habit, yeah.
Yeah.
Do I think that it can happen?
Uh-huh.
You mean that you can just go?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you're ready. If one is ready. It all depends on on intention and clarity that you're bringing to the situation. If you're trying to escape, for whatever reason, something, in other words, if it's being motivated by fear, that may not happen. If it's coming truly from visceral surrender and actual deep acknowledgement of where the process is, being one with where you are, and simply seeing that you have maybe 1 or 2 days left. I think people can have a very good sense that they're going to die in 1 or 2 or 3 days, and possibly one day. That information is available. One really doesn't know, and part of surrender, and surrendering to surrender, beyond surrender, is not being attached to that. It could be a gift, though, that he got a very clear intuition that was the day to really get things in order. I don't know. I don't know. Good words.
Don't know.
So, thank you all so much
Thank you.
for today. May the virtue of this morning's practice and consideration together benefit all sentient beings, period, throughout space and time. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free of sorrow and suffering and the root of suffering, avijja, tanha, ignorance and desire. Thank you very much.
So you'll come back.
This
This is your third visit since you got cancer. This is great.
It's 2 years.
You're totally lucid. I don't know what these lesions are doing in your panic, but
So far, there haven't been any brain symptoms. I don't know when they're going to pop up or start. But I'm sorry, I need to retract that. 2 weeks ago, I started to have some, but then they went away with the new medication.
what's the new medication called?
The new medication is called Eresa, or gefitinib. These medications have 2 names. And I was trying to get Eresa 2 years ago on a compassionate use basis and couldn't. Eresa went through all of its necessary trials with the FDA in the last 2 years and finally was approved this past summer. And when the chemos pooped out on me, the regular chemos, this is one of the new biological chemotherapies that's coming out. That's an exciting aspect of this, is that there are lots of things in the pipeline that are very much based on interrupting the natural cell life of the cancer cells. This one is an epidural growth factor inhibitor, which interrupts part of the cancer growing process. And it works in about 20% of the patients that they give it to. So, thank you, Buddha, for letting me stick around a little more. Oh, I wish all of you guys so well and happy holidays. This is a hard time of year for a lot of people. But I hope your deepest holiday wishes and practice wishes come true, whatever they may be. Thank you.
Now to the terribly prosaic level, we have announcements. Peter.
Just to alert people that there's a high-tech teapot out there instead of the old original one. If you're not sure how to use it, there's some instructions on the wall about which button to push to use the hot water. Also, we have a shortage of hosts, so if anybody's been thinking about maybe once every 2 months helping out, please talk to me.
Also, there's a sign-up sheet out by the Dharma Bowl for anyone who would like to be on our roster to receive the newsletter via email or mail, and just so we can know where to reach you with the announcement. So that sheet is out there. And we do request that everyone pitch it into the Dharma Bowl. $5 is our requested amount, more or less according to your situation.
Judy,
Yes.
there's the steering committee meeting. The next will be the second week in January. We're not going to have them on the first Sunday anymore because our schedule here will go on to the second Sunday. So the next one is January 11th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Happy
Peace,
solstice.
health. Let's hold hands just for a second.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.